We're at Mayer Farm Equipment just outside of Jeffersonville, and joining me is Randy Coker. And Randy, if you just picked up a white planter, or if you haven't looked at yours since last fall, what are some things we ought to take a look at to make sure we're ready for spring planting?
Well, one of the first things we look at is the seed disc. Make sure it's nice and clean. We can pull this one off and take a look at the brushes. Whenever you put the planter away, we expect you to back off the nut because there's a little cup to this plate. So we want to make sure that the plate isn't warped. We want to make sure that this brush down here is nice and flat. Sticks up about 1/4 of an inch past this housing inside here. That's what we call our cutoff brush.
If it's not, can we refurbish? If ours is kind of mashed down, what do we do?
Normally you can take these out. There's shims on the back if it's just worn down a little bit. If it looks like it's got grooves worn in it, you may have to replace it. Otherwise, you can usually just take it out and wash it if it's full of inoculants and things like that. You can wash them out and then dry them with a hair dryer, and they'll usually straighten right back up. Right up here on top, we have our tickler brushes, and that knocks off the doubles. So we want to make sure they're in good shape. They should stick out just a little bit past where this seed disc runs.
How critical is it when we start talking about getting in alignment and making sure that things aren't overly worn? Where's a good place to start looking there?
On the white planter, we really have no wear parts. There is no part. This seed disc area doesn't rub against any other area other than these brushes. So you see no wear. One thing we want to point out is you need to make sure that you wash the plate if it's got a buildup of inoculants and seed treatments, because it will build up with that kind of stuff. We don't normally recommend putting on any kind of a lubricant like talc or graphite, but on some of the new seeds with some of the new treatments, you have to put a little bit of something on there because it's so sticky. But no, there is no wear parts.
How about mechanically, once we get down into getting all of our row opened up, and of course, you know, critical placement, we got to open it, we got to drop the seed properly, we got to close it. Are there things there that we ought to take a look at?
One thing on the no-till coulters, you want to make sure that they're not set too deep and make sure they're not set too shallow. They should be running the depth that you want to be planting. So don't set the no-till coulter to cut in about 6 inches whenever you're trying to plant 2 inches, which we see some of that on some of the old units where they had like the frame-mounted coulters. These are row unit mounted coulters, so you can pretty well keep that relationship there. Make sure that you've got a good pinch point here on your opener discs. They should be touching about 1.5 inches at the front edge. So they should be together so that you don't have a gap on them. Once you get a little bit of wear, you can take off these outer wheels, just unbolt this, watch your shim stack, make sure you get it back the same way it was, and you can put shims in and out and on the inside or the outside of that opener disc to bring them in a little bit tighter.
There's just some of the things you may want to take a look at, and of course, if you have other questions, be sure to see your local dealer. Randy, thanks for the update, and get ready for spring planting.
Thanks, Dale.
I'm Dale Mignot. This is the Ohio AgNet.